Welcome to Money One-on-One episode number 3. As you can see in the last 2 episodes, we're basically building up and building the foundation towards, being smart with your money, financially, investment-wise, and then also basically the journey towards financial independency. So, on today's episode, I wanted to talk about low risk investments, medium risk investments, and high risk investments, and also personally how I use my investment capital and where do I place them, what percentage, and what do I consider low risk and high risk investments, and also why it's good that you should be diversified and how you'll be able to move your money around within your investments. So, in the last episode, I did mention I was going to talk about this on this episode, and then on the next episode, we're actually going to get into examples of investments that you can personally do right now. But before we do that, let's first of all go over what a low risk investment is, medium, and high risk. Now, a low risk investment is basically something that is I consider low risk investments boring. And I don't call them boring because they're not exciting as far as the technology, if it's a stock company, or I'm saying it's not exciting, I'm saying it's boring, which is good for a low risk investment because it basically means it's very stable. It doesn't shoot up and down. Basically, your adrenaline is not rushing up and down as the market is moving. You can sleep well at night knowing your money is in a boring investment, right? And it's basically just continuously and slowly and boringly growing. That's what a low risk investment is. Basically something that is not fluctuating up and down the market. It's not volatile. It's not run by news. It's not run by rumors. It's basically something that is that you can be able to project and you can be able to predict where it's going to go. So it's very boring, right? Kind of think about it like this. Think about it like a slot. Okay, a slot is something that's very boring. It's very slow, that to the point you can predict where it's gonna move, right? But a lion is like fierce. It's always moving. It's very fast. It's like a cheetah. It's gonna just go whoop. And basically, we're gonna talk about investments like those. But for now, boring investments are basically low risk, nice and stable. And the next thing is high risk. Okay, I know I skipped medium risk because medium risk is kind of like a little bit of both. To create medium risk. So the high risk is basically the as I mentioned, it's not a slot, it's a cheetah, it's a lion, it's something that's moving very fast in the market, something that's very volatile, something that can be able to just quickly just change positions very fast in the market. And high risk investments are good if you are investing your capital in a smart way, because high risk investments, you know the saying, the higher the risk, the bigger the reward. And that's what high risk investments are for. It's basically for you to put in capital into something that can be able to exponentially grow at a very short time period, right? It's not like a boring investment that can be maybe a nice stable 8% a year, 5% a year, whatever it might be, compared to a very high risk investment that can be 50%, 100% by the end of the year, or even sometimes, as we know, the crypto market, it can be 10,000% by the end of the year. Those are very high risk investments. And we'll be able to talk about how you should be able to handle and move your money. Now, before we even go there, let's first of all get this out of the way, okay? The banks and money sitting in your bank account is basically collecting dust, okay? It's good to save a certain amount of your money, but just know that the bank, when you're putting your money in your savings, they tell you to give an X amount yearly rate return. It's very small, it's very minimum, okay? And also you have different things like inflation to the point where basically you're losing money in your savings account instead of gaining money, okay? So that's the reason why people invest money, just in case if you did not get that whole part. And also it gives you perspective. If you make 5% return this year, 8%, be very humble and take that money and love it, okay? Because the banks gives you less than 0.1% yearly return, depending on whatever plan you might have with business bank, whatever it might be. Now, the next key part is knowing where your money should be. Okay, so the first part is, as I mentioned, we have the bank. Okay, that's where you put your savings, that's where your money is. And the bank is basically the boringest, as boring as it can be, right? The bank is not about, you're not about to wake up tomorrow and find out you lost 20% of your money just sitting in the bank. That's not gonna happen, right? That's why the bank is very stable and very boring. Now, the next level of boring is actually investing your money in something that is like a stock that gives you like a 5% yearly return. And like, Facebook is growing, or Apple, or Amazon stock is in, different things like that are, more stable compared to you investing in Snapchat. And it's a little bit more of a higher risk investment because Snapchat is still very young. People don't know where it's going to be headed. That's why I was a little bit of skeptical when it came to Snapchat. I was like, wait a minute, as in we have Facebook over here, and Mark Zuckerberg has a lot of assets in the social media market. So I consider Snapchat a very high risk investment when it came out with the IPO, because we're not sure where it went. And as you know, results right now, Snapchat stock did tank from its initial IPO price, but we don't know where it's headed. That's why Snapchat is a little bit of a more of a higher risk, medium risk investment, and a little bit more of a low risk investment. Might be something more like Apple, something that's very stable. We know where the market is headed. Something like Amazon, something like Facebook. Good companies that are very stable in the market. And even to get a little bit more stable, if you look at Warren Buffett's current investments and what he's looking in his portfolio, he has different things like Coca-Cola, very stable, very slow, nice returns. He has things like Geico, he has things like Wells Fargo, companies that really are not like always the most exciting in your face companies, but they're still there and they're still growing. And the next level is, of course, medium risk investments. Medium risk is basically where we have a little bit of a high risk and a low risk investment, and that's where you're able to bring those two together and put a certain amount of capital in there. Now, high risk investments are basically cryptocurrency right now. Cryptocurrency, great returns. I'm going to talk more about how to invest in cryptocurrency later, but it's still a high risk investment because cryptocurrency is still very unknown. It's not regulated, and the market the market drops 20% in it's just another day. So that's a very high risk investment, or shoots up 100% in a day, or 20% in a day on a current cryptocurrency you're holding. So it's a little bit more of high risk investments. Now, the key part that I want you to get out of this video is you might have low risk, high risk, medium risk and high risk investments, but what matters is the percentage you put into those different portfolios. And this is the very key part. Okay, a lot of people lose money in investing because they're putting their money into high risk investments because they're basically gambling with your money, and that's not good. Excuse me. Basically, what you want to do is, for me, this is my personal rule when it comes to investing. So basically, I put since I'm very young and I don't have a lot of bills right now, I don't have a lot of things that are holding me down in certain ways in my money. I'm a little bit more flexible. I basically do about 15% of my money. That's my rule. 15% of my capital gains on business, whatever it might be, for my holding company, I put into high risk investments. Okay, 15% as if it's initial investment, I do 20% start with, but after that I kind of go slower and I go back to 15% and slowly end up getting my gains and returns to the point where I'm not even risking my money anymore. I'm basically kind of removing my high risk investments around. And here's the next key part. If you have money in your high risk investment and you get let's say 100% return, 200% return, next key thing is you move that money towards a more stable, boring investment, right? You can move some money to the bank, but also move some money to a low risk investment. And it's basically where it comes to my next part. Basically for me, as I mentioned, 25% and below is my high risk investments. And then I basically have 25% of that also goes towards medium risk investments. So this might be, stocks. This might be something that's a little bit more stable that I can be able to rely on, but still I want to get a pretty good return on it. And then 50% of my capital gains, or basically capital that I plan to invest, I put into more of a low risk investment, something that's very boring, something that I know I can predict, something that I know gives me a good return monthly, yearly, whatever it might be, and it's not going to be going very volatile. I'm not going to be losing more than 5% of my money on that investment. It's very low risk. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into the foundation as we move towards into more deeper topics, because I want you to be able to understand hey, on this episode, I'm talking about cryptocurrency and this is high risk investment. So in your mind, you can be okay, if it's a high risk investment, it's probably best for me not to risk more than 10% of my money into this. I should only risk, maybe 5%, 8%, whatever might work for you. As I mentioned, for me, initial to start, I do 25% if it's a high risk investment, because once again, the age I'm in right now, I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have a lot of different things that are basically going to make me not be able to be very flexible with that money. That's why I put a little bit higher in my my high risk investments. But over the years, as I get older, as I start having more capital to the point where, you know, if you have $1 million and you're getting a 10% yearly return, that's still $100,000 compared to if you're starting at the beginning, you have like maybe $2,000 and you're trying to grow that exponentially. You put a little bit more of a high risk investment on it or medium risk. You see what I mean? So if you have to look at your life and you have to put yourself in your own shoes and then be able to make decisions based on that. So don't basically hear me saying, oh yeah, put X amount into this high risk investment. No, that's me. That's why I was explaining all the different things as I built up to me personally, okay? So that's kind of what this episode was a little bit longer because I wanted to get this out there because it's very, very important for you to understand low risk, medium risk, and high risk investments. What percentage of your portfolio should be where, and you should know why you put in that portfolio, and you should know what a low risk is and a high risk investment is, and what a medium risk investment is. If you know those things, it will enable you to, how can I put this? Not lose sleep at night, okay? You don't want to mortgage your house and put it on the Bitcoin. Like you're not gonna sleep because Bitcoin can crash 40% or it can disappear the next day. That's why you don't put your house on something. Never mortgage your house, by the way. I don't recommend that. Never do that. Unless you really believe in something, that's up to you, but just don't do it because you're gonna be losing sleep because the market is very volatile out there. But that's why it's very good for you to be able to move from a high risk investment. Basically, you put money in a high risk investment, slowly bring it into the boring category of your investment, low risk investment. So that if you make $10,000 on a high risk investment, move $5,000 to a boring investment, move $2,500 into a medium risk, and then leave $2,500 on the other section. I hope that math added up, but you get the point. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you guys today on this episode of Money 101. And next week, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency. And what is that? If you're new to it, we'll talk about what it is. If you're not new to it, I'll give you some tips, some gainers of what I've been doing. Be honest, I'm a skeptic of the market, but at the same time, I'm an advocate for the market because it's new money going in there. It's people, basically new money. That's what I call it. Cryptocurrency is new money. Old money is with the banks, traditional ways, but we might as well have fun with it. Not sure how long it's gonna last. Hopefully 2 more years, and we can make some good gains, or who knows, it might be the new bank system that we might be using in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching the episode. We'll talk more about cryptocurrency next week, and then later we'll talk about stock investments, and then we'll talk about other different things. By the way, guys, I am not about to talk about real estate. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out there. I am not about to talk about real estate because I have never done real estate investments in my life. I'm not about to make a video on something I don't know about or what I'm talking about. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Peace out. If you're interested in real estate investments, before I go find a person who really knows that stuff and they'll guide you on it. Okay? I'm not about it just to talk about real estate investment for the views or subscribers or anything like that. I'll just talk about things that I know. That's my motto. I live it, I experience it, and I share it. Learn from life, and I share it. Okay? Thanks for watching. Peace out. We'll talk later.